Dear friends, hearty welcome once again. Friends, in our today's lecture, we are going to learn the new topic, that is pumping action of heart. Dear friends, all of you are known that the heart itself acts as the pumping organ of blood vascular system. As already we have discussed that heart is a muscular organ. It works efficiently before birth up to the death, and it continuously undergoes rhythmic contraction and relaxation, during which it receives the blood from certain blood vessels and distributes that blood, pumps that blood into another set of blood vessels. And that's why it is said that the heart is the pumping organ of blood vascular system. Now in this topic, as we have to study the pumping action of heart, therefore first of all we people have to study some of the important terms related with this topic. First of all, let me tell you, first term, that is systole. As I said just now, that the heart shows a rhythmic contraction and relaxation. So the systole, this word stands for the contraction phase of heart chambers. Systole, it refers to the contraction phase of heart chambers. Contraction phase of heart chambers. It means whenever it occurs the contraction of atria, it is known as atrial systole or auricular systole, and when it occurs the contraction of ventricles, it is known as ventricular systole. Second term, diastole, exactly opposite to the systole. Diastole stands for relaxation phase of heart chambers. Relaxation phase of heart chambers. It means when auricles undergo relaxation, it is known as auricular diastole, and when the ventricles undergo relaxation, it is known as ventricular diastole. The next important term is heartbeat. One contraction followed by one relaxation represents one heartbeat. One contraction followed by one relaxation represents one heartbeat. किंवा वेगळ्या शब्दांमध्ये असं आपण सांगू शकतो, the heartbeat, it is the spontaneous and rhythmic contraction and relaxation of heart which is responsible to receive and to pump the blood to different parts of the body. We can define heartbeat in this manner: a single systole, that is contraction, followed by single diastole, represents one heartbeat. Let me write. A single systole followed by single diastole represents one heartbeat. And the number of heartbeats per minute is known as heart rate. Let me write. Heart rate. It can be abbreviated as HR. Heart rate, it is the number of heartbeats per minute. Number of heartbeats per minute. एका मिनिटाला किती वेळेला हार्ट बीटिंग होतं याला म्हटलं जातं हार्ट रेट. As far as concerned with human being, in normal adult human being, heart rate is near about 72 per minute at resting condition. सर्वसाधारण प्रौढ व्यक्तीमध्ये रेस्टिंग कंडिशनला हार्ट रेट हा 72 एवढा असतो. इन न्यूबॉर्न यंग वन, इन न्यूबॉर्न इन्फंट्स, नवजात बालकांमध्ये it is near about 130 per minute, while in old people it reduces to 60 to 70 per minute. या ठिकाणी मी तुम्हाला सांगत होतो की सर्वसाधारण नॉर्मल ॲडल्ट ह्यूमन बीइंग मध्ये रेस्टिंग कंडिशनला हार्ट रेट हा सर्वसाधारण 72 एवढा असतो आणि वृद्ध व्यक्तींमध्ये तो 60 to 70 आहे आणि न्यूबॉर्न इन्फंट्स मध्ये नवजात बालकांमध्ये तो जवळपास 130 पर मिनिट एवढा असतो. Even I would like to tell you that the heart rate is variable from species to species. वेगवेगळ्या सजीवांमध्ये वेगवेगळ्या प्राण्यांमध्ये हार्ट रेट हा वेगवेगळा असतो. Say it is found that in smaller animals the heart rate is much more higher than the larger animals. जे लहान आकाराचे प्राणी असतात त्यांच्यामध्ये हार्ट रेट हा जास्त असतो तुलनात्मकरित्या than the larger animals. One example I would like to give. Say in rabbit heart rate is 200 per minute, while in larger animal, that is elephant, the heart rate is simply 25 per minute. It means in smaller animals the heart rate is much more higher than the larger animals. Now question arises why? Because we know that the smaller animals are more active, they have a very high rate of metabolism and therefore the heart has to pump the blood quite speedily, quite quickly to supply the sufficient nutrients and oxygen to the muscles. जे स्मॉल ॲनिमल्स असतात, लहान आकाराचे ॲनिमल्स असतात, ते जास्त ॲक्टिव्ह असतात, त्यांच्यामध्ये मेटाबॉलिक रेट हा जास्त असतो आणि त्यामुळे हार्टला जास्त वेगाने त्याच्या स्नायूंना, त्याच्या मसल्सला न्यूट्रिएंट्स आणि ऑक्सिजनचा पुरवठा क्विक व्हावा यासाठी हार्ट बीटिंग हे जास्त वेगात असतं, हार्ट रेट हा जास्त असतो. Okay, so here we have discussed about the heart rate. Now come to the next term, that is stroke volume. Stroke volume is defined as it is the volume of blood pumped by left ventricle into the systemic circuit, that is into the systemic aorta during each heartbeat, during each ventricular systole, during each ventricular contraction. Listen carefully. I said that the stroke volume, it is the volume of blood, it is the amount of blood pumped by left ventricle into the systemic aorta during each heartbeat or during each ventricular systole. Ventricles अंकुचन पावत असताना वेंट्रिकलचं कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन झाल्यानंतर लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल मधून जितकं ब्लड हे सिस्टेमिक एओर्टा मध्ये पंप केलं जातं प्रत्येक कॉन्ट्रॅक्शनच्या वेळेला ड्यूरिंग ईच हार्टबीट याला म्हटलं जातं स्ट्रोक व्हॉल्यूम. अँड दिस स्ट्रोक व्हॉल्यूम इन नॉर्मल अडल्ट ह्यूमन बीइंग इज अबाउट 70 ml. सर्वसाधारण नॉर्मल अडल्ट ह्यूमन बीइंग मध्ये स्ट्रोक व्हॉल्यूम हा 70 ml हा मानला जातो. Now come to the next term, that is cardiac output. It may be simply called as heart output. It is abbreviated as CO. Stroke volume is abbreviated as SV. Now let me tell you what is cardiac output. Before to that, once again recall about the stroke volume. Stroke volume बाबत मी काय सांगितलं परत एकदा ऐका. Look at the diagram. Here I am going to draw a little diagram. We know that here is suppose 4-chambered heart. We know that here is a left auricle, left ventricle, right auricle, right ventricle. And as we are aware that from left ventricle it originates such a large blood vessel known as systemic aorta, and whenever the ventricles undergo contraction, at that time the oxygenated blood from left ventricle is pumped into the systemic aorta. So I said that during each heartbeat whatever amount of blood is pumped from left ventricle into the systemic aorta is known as stroke volume, and it is near about 70 ml. While cardiac output is defined as it is the volume of blood pumped by left ventricle per minute. Listen, cardiac output or heart output is defined as it is the volume of blood, amount of blood pumped by left ventricle into the systemic aorta per minute. एका मिनिटाला लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल मधून जितकं ब्लड हे सिस्टेमिक सर्किट मध्ये, सिस्टेमिक एओर्टा मध्ये पंप केलं जातं त्याला कार्डियक आउटपुट किंवा हार्ट आउटपुट असं म्हणतात. आता आपल्याला माहिती आहे की एका हार्टबीटच्या वेळेला 70 ml एवढं ब्लड हे लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल मधून सिस्टेमिक एओर्टात पंप केलं जातं, ज्याला आपण स्ट्रोक व्हॉल्यूम असं म्हणतो. आणि हार्ट रेट सर्वसाधारण नॉर्मल अडल्ट ह्यूमन बीइंग मध्ये आहे 72, आणि म्हणून द कार्डियक आउटपुट कॅन बी कॅल्क्युलेटेड ॲज द हार्ट रेट इनटू स्ट्रोक व्हॉल्यूम. ओके, हार्ट रेट that is 72, stroke volume 70, and therefore the cardiac output it comes near about 5040 ml or approximately 5 liters. 5 liter means in normal adult human being the cardiac output is 5 liter. सर्वसाधारण नॉर्मल व्यक्तीमध्ये कार्डियक आउटपुट हे एवढे 5 लिटर. नाउ दिस कार्डियक आउटपुट इट मे इंक्रीजेस ड्यूरिंग माइल्ड एक्सरसाइज लाइक वॉकिंग. वॉकिंग करत असताना हार्ट रेट वाढतो, हार्ट रेट वाढला की कार्डियक आउटपुट वाढेल. ड्यूरिंग माइल्ड एक्सरसाइज लाइक वॉकिंग द कार्डियक आउटपुट इट रेजेस अप टू 11 liters per minute. While in trained athletes during vigorous exercise the cardiac output may raises to 40 liters. So we have to understand, मग या ठिकाणी आपल्याला हे समजून घ्यायचे की ज्या वेळेला एक्सरसाइज व्यक्ती करत असतो, जर माइल्ड एक्सरसाइज केला तर सर्वसाधारणपणे वॉकिंग सारख्या एक्सरसाइज मध्ये कार्डियक आउटपुट हे सर्वसाधारण 11 लिटर्स पर मिनिट पर्यंत वाढतं, आणि व्हिगरस एक्सरसाइज मध्ये कार्डियक आउटपुट जवळपास 25 लिटर्स ते 40 लिटर्स इथपर्यंत वाढत असतं. ओके, नाउ वी पीपल हॅव टू स्टडी अबाउट द कंडक्टिंग सिस्टीम ऑफ हार्ट, कंडक्टिंग टिश्यू ऑफ हार्ट. डियर फ्रेंड्स, before discussing about the conducting system, conducting tissue of human heart, I would like to tell you that there are two types of heart seen in animals, such as neurogenic heart and myogenic heart. Let me explain. Neurogenic heart. We know that the heart itself acts as pumping organ. The heart it shows rhythmic contraction and relaxation, and for the working of heart it requires regular supply of an electric impulse. हृदयाचं एका तालबद्धतेने, लयबद्धतेने अंकुचन आणि प्रसरण घडून येण्यासाठी हार्ट मसल्सला त्या ठिकाणी एका विशिष्ट गतीने, सातत्याने विद्युत संवेदना, इलेक्ट्रिक इम्पल्स हा आवश्यक असतो, ज्याला आपण कार्डियक इम्पल्स पण म्हणू शकतो किंवा वेव्ह ऑफ कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन असं म्हणू शकतो, ऍक्शन पोटेन्शियल असं म्हणू शकतो, कार्डियक डिपोलरायझेशन असं पण म्हणू शकतो. नाउ इन सम एनिमल्स लाईक मोस्ट ऑफ द आर्थ्रोपोड्स, आर्थ्रोपोडा या फायलम मध्ये येणाऱ्या बऱ्याच प्राण्यांमध्ये, तसंच इन ॲनेलिड्स, ॲनेलिडा या फायलम मध्ये येणाऱ्या काही प्राण्यांमध्ये द वेव्ह ऑफ कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन or that electric impulse necessary for the rhythmic contraction of heart is initiated by the nervous tissue, by the ganglia present near the heart. All of you have studied about the nervous tissue in 11, and we know that The basic unit of nervous tissue is known as neuron or nerve cell, and the group mass of nerve cells is known as ganglia. Ganglion singular, ganglia plural. So whenever that electric impulse necessary for the contraction of heart is initiated, generated by the nervous tissue, ganglia, then such heart is said to be neurogenic heart. While myogenic heart means the heart in which the wave of contraction or action potential or heartbeat or electric impulse may be known as cardiac impulse necessary for the contraction of heart is generated by some specialized and modified cardiac muscles itself, that is the muscles of heart itself, then such heart is said to be myogenic heart. Please read these terms carefully. Neurogenic and myogenic. Here neuro, this word stands for nervous tissue, genic stands for genesis, means in this type of heart, the heartbeat, wave of contraction, that electric impulse is generated by nervous tissue. While the myogenic heart, myo stands for the muscle, the heart in which heartbeat is generated by the muscles of heart itself. Therefore, it is known as the myogenic heart. Such myogenic heart is shown by mollusk. Most of the mollusk, that is the animals belonging to phylum Mollusca, and all vertebrates including mammals, including human being. It means initially we have to understand the human heart is myogenic in nature. That is, the wave of contraction, heartbeat is initiated, generated by the specialized and modified cardiac muscles present in the wall of heart itself. Therefore, human heart is said to be myogenic. मराठीतून सांगतो. हृदयाच्या तालबद्धतेने हृदयाच्या लयबद्ध अशा अंकुचन आणि प्रसरणासाठी आवश्यक असणारी जी विद्युत संवेदना आहे ती हार्ट मधलेच काही विशिष्ट प्रकारचे स्नायू जनरेट करत असतात, तयार करत असतात आणि ती विद्युत संवेदना हृदयावर पसरवली जाते, कंडक्ट केली जाते, स्प्रेड होत असते, बिकॉज ऑफ विच इट ऑकर्स द रिदमिक कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन अँड रिलॅक्सेशन ऑफ हार्ट. Now that specialized patch and tracts of cardiac muscles which are responsible for the generation and conduction of an electric impulse all over the heart is togetherly known as nodal tissue or may be known as the Purkinje system. लक्षात घ्या, ह्यूमन हार्ट मध्ये इलेक्ट्रिक इम्पल्स जनरेट करण्याचं कार्य, तसंच तो इलेक्ट्रिक इम्पल्स हार्टच्या प्रत्येक मसल पर्यंत वाहून नेण्याचं कार्य ज्या विशिष्ट अशा मसल फायबर्स मार्फत केलं जातं त्यांना एकत्रितपणे नोडल टिश्यू किंवा पर्किंज सिस्टीम असं म्हणतात. So here we people have to study about the components and working of that Purkinje system or nodal tissue. Let me explain you. The Purkinje system consists of four main components such as first, sino-auricular node may be abbreviated as SA node. Second, auriculo-ventricular node may be abbreviated as AV node. Third, bundle of His or Tawara. Fourth, branches of bundle of His and Purkinje fibers. Now we have to discuss about the morphology, about the working of these nodal tissue or Purkinje system. Here I am going to draw a diagram. Let us start. Let me draw here the outline diagram of human heart showing the four chambers. Just consider here are two smaller superior chambers, that is auricles, that is left auricle, right auricle, left ventricle, right ventricle, and as we are aware that the left auricle and right auricle are separated from each other by means of vertical septum, interauricular septum. Left ventricle and right ventricle are separated from each other by means of such a oblique septum, that is interventricular septum. And here I am going to show the wall of auricles and ventricles. For our proper understanding, I am going to show the opening of superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and also here is a small opening of coronary sinus. आपण हार्टचं इंटरनल स्ट्रक्चर शिकत असताना हे शिकलेलो आहे. द राइट ऑरिकल इट रिसीव्स deoxygenated blood, impure blood via two large blood vessels, superior vena cava or precaval. Here is the opening of superior vena cava. Then inferior vena cava or postcaval. Here is the opening of inferior vena cava, and here is a small opening of coronary sinus. Now let us talk about the components of Purkinje system. First, sino-auricular node may be abbreviated as SA node. The sino-auricular node, it is nothing but simply a patch or mass of specialized cardiac muscles present in the wall of right auricle just below the opening of superior vena cava. मी काय म्हटलं परत एकदा या ठिकाणी सांगतोय. Sino-auricular node, it is the small patch or mass of specialized and modified cardiac muscles. काही विशिष्ट प्रकारच्या कार्डियक मसलचा हा पॅच आहे, मास आहे. इट इज प्रेझेंट इन दी वॉल ऑफ राइट ऑरिकल. तो राइट ऑरिकलच्या वॉल मध्ये असतो, पण निश्चित कुठे तर जस्ट बिलो द ओपनिंग ऑफ सुपेरियर व्हेना कॅवा. आपल्याला इथे दिसतंय दिस इज द ओपनिंग ऑफ सुपेरियर व्हेना कॅवा, आणि या सुपेरियर व्हेना कॅवाच्या खाली या ठिकाणी हा एसए नोड प्रेझेंट आहे. लेट मी लेबल. Actually, it is the site of entry of sinus venusus in embryo. Embryo मध्ये sinus venusus हे जे accessory chamber असतं ते या ठिकाणी उघडत असतं, किंबहुना म्हणून या नोडला अशा प्रकारे नाव दिलेलं आहे. This SA node is also known as pacemaker. SA नोडला pacemaker असं म्हणतात, because it has spontaneous ability, it has unique property to initiate, to generate an electric impulse, may be known as the cardiac impulse at regular interval of 0.8 second in normal adult human being. सर्वसाधारण normal adult human being मध्ये 0.8 सेकंदच्या अंतराने हा SA नोड इलेक्ट्रिक इम्पल्स जनरेट करत असतो, विद्युत संवेदना तयार करत असतो, and therefore it may be known as the pacemaker. Now the electric impulse, cardiac impulse generated by SA node is spread over left as well as right auricle more or less simultaneously. या ठिकाणी एसए नोडने तयार केलेली जी विद्युत संवेदना आहे, कार्डियक इम्पल्स आहे, तो कमी जास्त प्रमाणात सारख्याच वेळेला या दोन्ही ऑरिकल्स वर पसरत असतो थ्रू द कार्डियक मसल फायबर्स. वी नो द कार्डियक मसल फायबर्स आर interconnected with each other by means of cross oblique connections, and therefore electric impulse can be easily transported, can be spread easily all over the auricles. Now the electric impulse or that wave of contraction, it cannot pass over directly from auricles to the ventricles. Why this is so, I will tell you after few minutes. Now second component of Purkinje system is AV node, auriculoventricular node. AV node, it is also the patch or mass of specialized cardiac muscle present in the wall between the auricles and ventricles near the opening of coronary sinus. कृपया लक्षात घ्या, या ठिकाणी हा जो SA नोड आहे त्याच पद्धतीने दुसरा एक नोड आहे. नोड याचा अर्थ काय? पॅच और मास ऑफ स्पेशलाइज्ड और मॉडिफाइड कार्डियक मसल्स. आणि हा AV नोड it is also present in the wall between auricles and ventricles near the opening of coronary sinus. या ठिकाणी बघा, या coronary sinus चं ओपनिंग आहे आणि त्याच्या जवळ या ठिकाणी सर्वसाधारण हा AV नोड प्रेझेंट असतो. इथे मी दाखवतोय. This is AV node. AV node is also known as pace setter. It is not pacemaker, because AV node does not have ability to generate an electric impulse on its own. स्वतःहून हा विद्युत संवेदना तयार करू शकत नाही. But an electric impulse or wave of contraction from auricles, it induces, it stimulates that AV node to generate the fresh electric impulse, and then that electric impulse, that wave of contraction from AV node is passed over to the next component, that is bundle of His. Bundle of His, it is simply the bundle of specialized cardiac muscle which originates from AV node and run downward, passing through the interventricular septum. या ठिकाणी AV node पासून, this is the bundle of His, it originates from the AV node and it passes downward through the interventricular septum. या interventricular septum मधून हे bundle of His खाली पास होत असतं. It immediately splits up into its right and left branches. These are the branches of bundle of His. Let me label. This is bundle of His and these are the bundle branches. The branches of bundle of His enter into the wall of each ventricle. It means one branch enters into the wall of left ventricle and another branch enters into the wall of right ventricle, and here it occurs the ramification of these branches. Ramification means it gives rise to many branched fibers known as Purkinje fibers. Here I am going to show these are the Purkinje fibers. So an electric impulse from AV node is transported all over the ventricular musculature via the bundle of His, branches of bundle of His and Purkinje fiber, so that the ventricles undergo contraction. Actually, the contraction of ventricles, it initiates from its lower narrow portion, that is apex. You know, the heart is conical and its lower narrow end is called as apex, and therefore the ventricular systole, ventricular contraction, it begins here and it rapidly occurs towards the opening of aorta. आपल्याला माहिती आहे या ठिकाणी पल्मनरी एओर्टाचं ओपनिंग आहे आणि या ठिकाणी सिस्टेमिक एओर्टाचं ओपनिंग आहे. म्हणजे खालून वरच्या दिशेने वेंट्रिकलचं वेगाने कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन घडून येत असतं. In this manner, the wave of contraction or heartbeat or action potential is generated and it is conducted all over the heart with the help of these different components. Therefore, togetherly, all these different components is known as Purkinje system or conducting system. One point I want to tell you. Few minutes before I told you that the wave of contraction from auricles cannot pass over the ventricles directly. There is a interval of just 0.1 second, and that's why the auricles and ventricles does not undergo contraction simultaneously. Okay, initially it occurs the contraction of auricles, then the blood is completely pumped into the ventricles. As the ventricles get filled with blood, then it occurs the contraction of ventricles. मग असं का होतं? ऑरिकल्स वर असलेली विद्युत संवेदना ही सरळ ventricles वर का पास होत नाही? Because in between auricles and ventricles there is a septum of fibrous connective tissue. फायब्रस कनेक्टिव्ह टिश्यूचा एक सेप्टम, एक पडदा ऑरिकल्स आणि वेंट्रिकल्सच्या मध्ये असतो. इट इज नोन ॲज annular pad. Let me show. Here is supposed to be the annular pad. It is simply the fibrous connective tissue septum which prevents the direct passing of electric impulse from auricles to the ventricles. But I told you that electric impulse spreaded over the auricles, it stimulates the AV node, and then that impulse is conducted via these entire components all over the ventricular musculature. In this manner, here we have studied about the conducting system of heart. So let us stop here today. Remaining topic we shall study in our next lecture. Thank you and bye.